Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy VS Code live stream Thursday. My name's Olivia. I'm a dev advocate on the VS Code team. And as always, I'm very happy to be here with you all today. Chat, let me know where you're watching from. That's always one of my favorite parts of these live streams is to see just how many people all over the world we get to hang out with. If you're new to these live streams, then we basically relatively every week, sometimes more, sometimes less. We'll have some of our partners come on. We'll do product spotlights, just a lot of really fun stuff to showcase y'all and to just make this interactive. Make sure you're dropping your questions in the chat so that way we can ask our awesome guests those questions live. You'll get your answers and it's just going to be a fun time. So I already see we've got some folks streaming in the chat coming from France, Arizona, Florida. That's awesome. Love to see it. Thank you all so much for being here. Without further ado, though, y'all are here to see our awesome guest. So today we have Mike on from DBCode.
Hey, Olivia. Thanks
hey, Mike.
for having me.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Thanks so much for being here.
Happy to. Pleasure.
Cool. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're going to be showing off today?
Sounds great. Yeah, I'm obviously Mike Burgh, developer and creator of DBCode, a database extension for VS Code. The idea kind of grew out of my own frustration. I love VS Code and was spending lots of time in it in a previous job, but really wanted jumping back and forth, obviously, between a database product and code, kind of, always frustrating, different keystrokes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, when I got the opportunity to start building an extension for VS Code, I jumped into the database extension. It's come a long way, still a long way to go. The kind of goal is to get a complete database management tool inside VS Code. And yeah, at the moment we've got a kind of large number of databases supported, but what's really getting a lot of interest from people is obviously the functionality you guys have recently rolled out with the Copilot tools. People are really kind of almost, it's magic, it's mind-blowing kind of feedback coming in from what it can do just by giving it those, I think it's currently 4 or 5 very simple tools. And Copilot's able to do all sorts of stuff. I've used it personally for things like generating test examples when people are raising issues and things like that. And each time I'm like, I don't think it'll get this, but it does. So.
Yeah, that's the best is when you're like, I guess I'll just ask to see if it will work. And then you do, and it's like, oh my gosh, that used to take me hours sometimes. Exactly. It just spits it out. So I love that we're going to kind of see that intersection of that functionality with database management, because that is obviously something that is very top of mind for a lot of people, and is something that people are always looking to help streamline and bring into their coding flow as much as possible. We already have one person in the chat saying that this is a very cool extension, so got some excitement there to see more about DBCode.
Sounds great.
Cool. All right. Should we bring up your screen?
Let's do it. Yeah, so I guess let's jump into the tools functionality, since that's what we're talking about. As I said, this is kind of recently released from your side with the tools and the agent functionality. But we've provided some simple tools to kind of let you find connections within those connections, and those connections relate to databases. The AI can then get the tools, information for your tables and the schema, and then there's a tool to execute the query. Obviously, within Copilot, we don't have to configure anything. That just sort of works straight out of the box. You'll see here on the extension, I've got a number of different databases configured. These are all just test databases and perfect for these kind of walkthroughs. But one of the fun things when I was first building this, I found was that, just getting some information out of the database, not only did it give me the information, but it then also sort of went on to summarize it. A great example is find the actors in the MariaDB. killer database that have starred in a film together. So it's a pretty simple request. And now the tools are going to get used by the AI, and it's going to prompt me each time for the various ones. I can see that there's no data going to this one, but it's going to retrieve all the connection information. And this is how it's going to figure out which connection to use. I didn't tell it specifically which one. I gave it the name MariaDB. It's obviously figured out that that must be this Maria 11 one. Now it's going to retrieve the databases.
And so this is just all with natural language. That is
natural
awesome.
language, and very limited. Like, I'm not being overly specific. I didn't get
right.
And here's kind of the interesting thing. Before tools came out, it would detect that killer name, which is a kind of standard test database of movie rentals, and it would give you what it would believe to be a query for it based on purely its knowledge of that sample database. With the tools, it actually can now go through and retrieve the table. So it's showing me here, I can just preview it. It's going to get the database from that connection, and there's a connection ID as well. So it's not basing on its knowledge of that database. It's actually going to really retrieve the tables. Now it's going to execute a query, and we can see that query that it's going to run.
Oh, even just that, I feel like, is awesome. Like, think about how you used to have to
exactly
like manually come up with that. Okay, what do I need to grab? Like, and now it just generates it.
And now it executes it. Oh, it's going for a loop.
This is the fun part of live demos, right?
Exactly. Gotta love AI. What's it doing? It's in a loop.
Oh yeah.
Let's cancel out of that. I actually tend to find Sonnet works better.
I think that's always like interesting. I feel like we see this a lot in demos where people might use like the default model or a different model, and they're like, oh, you know what? Let me go to my model of choice.
Yeah.
And see what I like. Yeah.
So the same process. Yep.
And you mentioned just earlier that there's no configuration. You just have the DBCode extension.
Correct. Once you've installed the extension, the tools are there. They're automatically provided to the agent in Copilot.
Cool. And then we had a question in the chat saying, what was the name of it? And we have the link to get that in the marketplace on screen right now. See that there. Or just search DBCode in the extension marketplace in vscode.
So it's retrieving the tables.
This is why I also think it's interesting. Like, I actually like that we were able to kind of switch models, is you can even see like the difference in how it's addressing the response. Like when I think you were using what 4.0 before, and it was just kind of like, it just did it. And then here it's kind of like Claude is like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it does it. And I'm going to do this. And so you're going to kind of see different levels of verbosity and kind of walk through depending on what model you're showing. So yeah, again, just kind of pick the one that you like. You can always kind of tailor it to your specifications as well. But I think it's fun to see these back to back.
Yeah. And so there it is coming back now with the data. And as I said, it's not just, it didn't just give me, here's the actors. It's finding all the different movies they starred together in. So it's kind of, obviously it's guessing where I'm trying to go and what information. And then it pulled out more than I asked for and then gave me this nice kind of summary. Which actors starred the most, which films they starred in. And then obviously it prompts you with kind of follow-up questions. Would you like to see more specific details? And then you can kind of take it now and say, show me who rented the most number of films starring, and I'll just pick one of these people. I'll take Kristen Paltrow. So again, all natural language, and letting that AI do its magic, and then just pulling out the tools to use
I feel like sometimes with demos like this, like it almost doesn't come across of like how amazing this is. Like you literally have not left chat and you just had an entire query crafted based off the database that you already had set up, and like you're just hitting continue essentially.
Yeah, and I can even with these. I don't like executing the query automatically. I always like just to review that.
Yeah, right.
But the other ones you can turn on to just auto execute because they're not. They're not going to make a change, so it'll retrieve connections, databases, tables, all that kind of automatically. And so again, now it's found the connection it wanted, and it's back executing the query because it keeps that memory of what the structure, the schema, the tables from when it's previously looked them up.
Do databases have to take any specific format or anything for this sort of
At the moment, I've only sort of used it heavily with the SQL-based databases. So in part of the connection discovery, the extension tells them what the I guess dialect for it is. So it's, is it a SQL database? Is it a Postgres database, etc. And then the AI is able to build the queries around that. You might be able to do it with some NoSQL ones, but some of their queries get a bit more complicated.
Gotcha.
Because they're not using pure SQL. But yeah. And so, yeah, now it's found me who read the most number of films starring that actor. So again, you can kind of start drilling into that data and doing some of that summary and, analysis work without actually writing SQL, without getting near the data. The data's all over here inside this database, tables. You can see all the various tables. We can click on them. And I'll just minimize this window over here a little bit. So you can see all the data, and, we can do our own queries as well if we want to. The standard select star from actor, and we've got autocomplete and all that kind of functionality. Then we get the results.
Oh, I love this output. If y'all haven't seen the DBCode extension in action before, like, this is just such a nice view, all directly in VS Code. I love it.
Yeah, and that was obviously, that was kind of the goal, keeping everything in VS Code and getting that high-level database management functionality in there. Yeah, so there's the old way, or, the more traditional way versus then the chat way. And I obviously didn't do it. I just listed all the actors out, do any kind of joining. The other one I found really interesting, like we were talking about, when I had an issue come in, somebody had a large number of tables and there were some performance issues around. I'm like, okay, I'll write a script, I'll generate, 10,000 test tables or something. I thought, actually, let's just see what the AI can do. And it built the script for me, executed in batches, and created, I think we ended up using like 25, 30,000 as a test. But that was then a whole nother kind of, okay, this can look at not only the data, but it can also look at schema and give me that kind of information. So one of the things that I found interesting is asking it to sort of review a database and give you some feedback, best practices, things like that. So same sort of idea. Let's review the schema. No, let's call the database. Secure in the Maria DB connection. Please advise. And always, I'm one of these people that, please and thank you with the AI.
I do the same thing. I feel like it helps.
Yeah, I agree. It's better to be nice.
Yeah.
Bring that back to the big size screen. So again, it's going to go through and just make sure I should have told that to auto execute, but find the right connection out of the ones. And I'm staying with the Mario one, because that's got my secure database in it. But we'll turn these on to automatically allow. Then we'll just keep running.
Nice, cool. Yeah, if y'all didn't know you could do that, that's a really handy tip. Like Mike mentioned, he doesn't love to do it for things like actually running the query. He likes to be able to review for other ones. Where it's just getting the connection. That's a really handy way to just say, okay, always allow, so that way you don't have to keep hitting continue every time that tool runs.
Yeah, so now it's gone back. It's obviously retrieved the connection, the database, and the tables. And when it gets the tables, it gets all their foreign keys, their indexes, all of that schema information, which we can see, again, if we look at it manually over here, it's all here, primary keys, indexes, columns. It's getting all of that data, essentially the schema from it. And what's interesting, it gets provided to it in JSON. It doesn't even need it in traditional create statements from SQL. It can understand the JSON structure.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think this is so powerful because, I'm thinking about like one of the first projects I was ever on when they had this whole database. I was pretty new to SQL. I was pretty new to database management in general. And I was so lost. And like a lot of times when you're new, you're like, I don't know what to do. Like now you could just ask Copilot to explain it, kind of give you a lay of the land if you're not used to that. I think that was just so powerful. I think about all the ways that this just helps getting you ramped up and getting you familiar with the data. When that used to take you hours, days, like so many talking back and forth to figure out what's going on.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and like this is its summary on best practices, right? So if I'm looking at, and it's come up with, this is a very sort of standard sample database that's out there, but it's gone through and identified a number of changes. And then it's talking about obviously query optimization. I'm not going to go through and break it all down, but you can also now start prompting it to follow up and make these changes. And it connects, because it can execute queries, it will go through and start, applying the tables, adding indexes, changing columns. And I think one of them in here is about adding audit trails. You can actually have it go through and then make those changes to the database. And like you were saying, learning a database, that can be a daunting task. If we look at something like an entity relationship diagram, this might get a bit big on my screen. Let me sort of zoom and drag it. This was kind of the traditional way of trying to figure out, okay, which tables are related to what. And I'm trying to get it to fit on the screen in a way that gets us some screen space. You can look, okay, the staff table, how does that relate to everything? Let's find out, can Copilot do it for us?
Ooh.
This is we'll see. Can you tell me which tables in MariaDB to the actor table? And each time I'm starting a new chat, we could keep it in the old one, and I think it'll keep that context. But
yeah, I think that's also an interesting thing to see. I always like when people come on the live stream, so I like to see like what their Copilot flow is, because some people like to do a new chat with everything. Some people like to just have like literally like never ending one that just has all the context you've ever done.
Yeah.
And so I like to see the different processes.
Yeah, so now it's gone through and it's broken it all down for us, and found out that it is correct. Like the actor table links to film actor, and then through that we get to the film, through the foreign key, and it's explaining all of that and how it works. So yeah, in terms of learning a new table or a new database environment, obviously it does a very good job at giving us that information.
Right.
Too.
That's awesome. I just think that's so empowering.
Yeah.
We have one comment saying this planet has real smart people. This is a great extension indeed.
No, it's standing on the shoulders of the VS Code team. The work they've done in Copilot is incredible. As I said, it's not the tools we've given it are basically, here's how to execute a query, here's how to find connections. Like I'm not kidding, 10, 20 lines of code max.
Oh, well, I love hearing that. Yeah, that's our goal, is to help make all our amazing extensions be able to tap into what we have going on as easy as possible. And again, really, it's like bringing, like the power of VS Code is always like kind of in the extensions and like bringing in as much context as we can without ever having to leave VS Code. So I think this is so cool, where you don't have to be going to a different database management tool. You don't have to be switching back and forth. It's all right here. If you want to go straight into code here, you don't have to leave. And that's just really awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
There's one question that said, I've tried and used different database management extensions, and I found that executing procedures is often not supported. Does DBCode support procedure executions?
Yes, procedure executions and procedure editing.
Cool. And then, there's a question, will this extension have a dependency to make Claude use Claude in order to get cool results? I assume that's kind of in the context of us switching from GPT-4o to Claude, but
yeah, I think it's a moving target, honestly. I've found good success with Claude. We can try again and do another one with 4o and see how it goes.
Yeah, I would say that's that's not really anything to do with the extension. That's more just the state.
That's the AIs, yeah. As I said, we provide it's literally 10, 15 lines of code. Here's how to execute a query, and then the AI does its thing. Whether it can get the inference and the context is the question.
Yeah, I think that's just a great plug to, you have the model picker, pick which one seems to be working best with your
you can
flow.
bring your own in as well now with that recent update.
Yes, bring your own key is an awesome feature. So if you're not using one of the provided models, you can add your own API key for one of our supported providers, and then bring it right into Copilot. So very cool there. This is one of the best extensions I've ever used in VS Code, and so cool.
Thank you.
So lots of love in the comments here.
Always appreciated.
And then I will use this every day. Cool. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to show us, Mike?
There's a lot of stuff in here. It's been a while now building and working away on it. But yeah, obviously it's, the functionalities continue to be added. We just recently rolled in the ability to generate all the scripting. So you can start the scripting out. We're about to add all the DDL scripts, create, and all that functionality. It's a little more complex because some of the databases don't actually give it to you via the database. You've kind of got to run command lines to get it out. So that's on the way. And yeah, basically just working on now what sort of feedback execution plans is coming. That's a big one people want. Again, I'm looking at building that with the AI side of it as well, because if you've got a really complicated query, okay, here's an execution plan, but where do I begin? It might be over here, might be over there. So looking at kind of linking that back to the Copilot stuff to say, okay, here's my query, here's my execution plan, all again within VS Code. Where and how should I go about optimizing this query? Because from what I've done with some limited testing, that the AIs do understand those execution plans. They can see the performance issues and then tweak accordingly. So again, trying to kind of close that loop back to the AI functionality for when you need that extra, either starting inside or you can't quite crack it. See what they can come up with.
Awesome. You mentioned getting feedback. Is there a place that people can provide feedback on features they'd want to see?
All through the GitHub issues.
Okay.
Yeah, the extension links to the repository kind of stuff.
Cool. Always a good plug there.
Yeah. Where is it linked? It's linked wherever it is in here. My screen's so small. It's all right inside, but I can't scroll to it.
So there are a couple questions about if are these tools available without using MCP? Are you showing MCP? How is this working?
Haven't showed MCP. This is done using Copilot. So Copilot, this all works out of the box with VS Code, right? So the extension provides the tools, Copilot picks them up. There's no configuration needed. The extension does provide an MCP as well. That's on the paid side of the extension. But that MCP would then let you do this, if there's other extensions. I think there's root code and maybe Klein, I think, are a couple of the other AI assistants that will work with MCPs. So yeah, you can configure the MCP, give that to those extensions, and they can essentially, it's the same set of tools, the same features, retrieving connections, databases, and executing queries. So the MCP is there if they need to go that way. And
you mentioned that that's on the paid version. Yeah, everything that you've shown here in the free version?
Except for the entity relationship diagrams, they're in the paid. But yeah, all the Copilot stuff is free. Once the VS Code team made Copilot, free for, I think it was 200 or 2,000 chats, whatever it was. That's when I was talking to the team and said, yeah, look, this stuff is really mind blowing when I got it working. I think it should be free as well. So yeah, all the tools integrations, all free.
That's awesome. I love that. And then there's a question: can this connect to a SQLite database that lives inside a container?
If the file, so SQLite connects via file paths. I think it might even be one in this sample, maybe. There's one here, yeah. So it's supported via file path. So if the either extension's also running in the container, like a dev container, yes. Or if you can mount the SQLite out on a file share that's accessible by the extension. So basically, wherever VS Code's running, if it can get to the file, then the extension can add it. And when you click on the plus to add, let me shut this window down. Here's all the supported databases. So if we choose SQLite, it's just a file browser. So as long as you can locate that file, you can pick it up.
And then let's see. We've got some good questions coming in. Y'all keep them coming. So here's one. Maybe I missed it. Can it do query performance analysis and offer to create indexes?
At the moment, you can't. Where the execution plans aren't being generated by the extension. So if you get one manually from it, and you can just run literally. I think most databases work with an explain. I think Postgres does it. SQL Server is a little different. But if you generate the execution plan, you can give it to Copilot manually. In the next probably couple of weeks, the extension will actually generate you an execution plan and give you an option to get Copilot's insight on it, and then provide whether it's recommendations about changing your joins, adding indexes accordingly.
Awesome, cool. Lots of. There's more love. So cool. Well done, Mike. Need to be on your team. Okay, Live AI Lab. Let us know if we're not understanding your question, but asked, is it going to be smart enough to use the existing connection in the project?
It's interesting. That question actually came in last night in a GitHub issue I was looking at this morning. People were saying, can we associate a connection to a workspace and then get that into Copilot? And honestly, I have to kind of spend a little bit of time looking at it just to see if we can get that context in. Obviously, you can add context here for files. But if we can tie that to a workspace automatically, then the answer is yeah, we'll do it, because that cuts out one of those steps. Obviously, you don't need to keep telling it MariaDB and then kind of prompting it down that path.
Right. That makes sense.
So yeah, I'm definitely, it's on the wish list as of last night, and we'll be looking into it.
Awesome. Good timing.
And if not, I'll raise an issue with the VS Code team about how we can provide more content.
We'll figure it out.
That's it.
Cool. I think that those are all the questions. There's some other general, more VS Code live stream questions. Will there be a live session for data analysis? We can definitely add that to our list of sessions for that. And then there's one about how the coding agent needs to be enhanced. Thank you for your feedback. That's obviously a VS Code feedback, not DBCode extension. Feel free to always file issues in our, I think it's the vscode Copilot release repo if you are seeing any issues with agent mode with Copilot in general, because we love to get your feedback. Just like Mike saying he likes to get feedback for DBCode, hear what's top of mind, hear what we can do to improve. We do the same thing on the VS Code side. So definitely follow us on our repos and add issues there. Cool. All right, I think that's all the questions I see right now. Chat, if I missed yours, just put it back in and let me know. But Mike, is there anything else you'd like to showcase?
I think that's kind of given everyone a good overview and touched on, as I said, the Copilot stuff's been the kind of mind-blowing, wow, the stuff that enables and lets you do.
Yeah. I feel like we need to do like a side-by-side of like what database management was like, even just like a few years ago compared to this. So you can like literally, we need to have like someone like on another stream and be like, okay, we did this in literally like 30 seconds and we're still working on this.
That's it. Yeah, and some of those queries and the joins and some of that can get 300 or 400 lines long queries if you're getting crazy.
Yeah.
The time it takes to do it. The AI is not always right. I wouldn't blindly trust it, but it certainly gets it very close.
Yeah, and always a good plug, like you mentioned a couple of times, kind of make sure that you are reviewing the queries, make sure that it didn't all of a sudden slip in a drop everything in there or something.
Yes, you can, through the extension, you can set roles and things like that on databases. So you can set roles for not allowed drops and stuff like that.
Oh, that is handy. Junior programmer Olivia would have loved that.
I renamed 300,000 people once to Smith.
Oh, no.
I wrote an update query without a where statement.
Oh, no. Honestly, I've heard that sort of same scenario happen so many times. Like, it's...
I think everyone does it once. After that,
and you have to, and then you never do it again, though.
No, you very pay attention to that where clause after that. But I still remember that day vividly. Like, what? Uh-oh.
And the immediate panic that just like I'm sure set it, and you're like, wait a second.
Exactly. That thing got taken too long, and why is it saying 310,000 rows updated?
Like, oh no.
Momentary panic, and then quickly run to backups.
Yeah, that's always a good plug. Make sure you have backups.
That's it.
There's one question asking, there's a question about MCP, which we already addressed, so definitely make sure to catch this on demand. This will be available on the VS Code YouTube channel that you can watch again, see the whole overview. It's really great stuff. But there's a second question of, does this connect to Oracle DB?
Yes, Oracle supported. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And then just some more love, great product and great pricing. Really appreciate it. And then, okay, one more question before we head out. But they said, I joined late. I might have missed it, but I have very complex queries that have multiple joins, which is what we were just talking about. Would Copilot be able to understand the table schemas and missing indexes with analyzing the query?
Yeah, so it can definitely understand the joins and the table schema, and that's one of the steps in the tools it gets back and figures out how to get those queries. The earlier examples was exactly that. Like it was looking through, I think it goes through 3 tables to get the information. Analyze the indexes, yes, but when we get the execution plans piped in, it'll be a lot smoother because at the moment it doesn't get any data about what happens with the actual query execution. So if you're looking to do that performance analysis, that's when the execution plan will come in.
Awesome. I feel like that ended up being like a great summary of kind of an overview of what we showcased. So again, definitely make sure to check out the on-demand version of this so you can go back and catch up on everything that you missed. Like Mike mentioned, definitely head to the DBCode repo if you have any feedback requests or notice any bugs, anything like that. File an issue on the GitHub repo. The team's great. Otherwise, Mike, I really appreciate you being on here.
Thanks.
I love seeing these extensions spotlighted and just seeing all the people that lives are made easier by work like this.
That's the goal.
Thank you so much for being here.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. With that, chat, make sure to follow us on YouTube if you're not already, just so you can see the latest and greatest live streams, videos, everything that we have. And like I mentioned, you can catch this on demand as well if you missed anything. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here and showing off DBCode. Thank you, chat, for being here as always. And we will see you next time.